Yo guys, it's JJ here, and today I'm going to be walking you through a PYREX WHIPPA and SOUTHSIDE beat that I made from scratch. Goes super hard, and of course guys, thanks a lot for the 1,000 subs. I'm going to keep preaching this every single video because, yo, I still can't believe we did this, so all the love is appreciated. I'm going to be doing loads of giveaways from now on, lots of stuff coming up for this year, so make sure to subscribe, hit up my Instagram, keep up with all the news. But without further ado, let's just start the video. First things first is, we got this out for the BPM of like 110. Usually these SOUTHSIDE beats and PYREX beats can range from like the 100s to the 130s, or you can go even crazier to like the 160s to 170 BPM range. So quite versatile, but in this instance, we're doing it at 110 at a C# minor. And of course, as we can see, first plugin being used, Analog Lab 5 with a preset called Verdi. It's a nice little ambient pad that I found, but let me just show you what I did. As we can see, it's a nice little 4-bar that repeats over, keeping it simple. But if we just analyze this chord here first, it's essentially just a root note copied up an octave, and then just using these two notes down here, create a nice little back and forth rhythm where they're one semitone apart. And of course, at the end, ending it with a nice little D# up here, which is essentially the same note, just a whole octave higher. And then for a bit of variation, actually made a normal minor chord, except this note, instead of being here, is up here, and then like a diminished minor, of course. But the key takeaway from this is, if we look at all of these notes here and these notes up here, first of all, it's a lot of similar notes just being used again, like C# and D# being rinsed. From what we can see, these notes are part in a scale where one note are semitone apart from each other. So as you can see from the highlighted grey parts, they're like one semitone apart, and this just gives it a very nice dark vibe in the scale that it's in, really giving that SOUTHSIDE, that PYREX WHIPPA kind of aesthetic, and really, you know, tying it all together. So enough chat from me. This is what the first pattern sounds like. And there we have it. Super nice, super ambient, a great pad overall. But let me just show you the effects. First thing first, got ourselves a nice little EQ cutting off all of the lows. Then I added this fruity parametric EQ, more of like just to boost all the frequencies, to be honest, because as we could see, sound was very quiet, to be honest, so just use this to raise the overall volume. I got myself an instance of gross beat, and then used this nice little sidechain preset at the bottom and mixed it around 54%, as we could hear very well in the beat itself. And then last but not least, I got myself an instance of Portal using this Grace preset, which if I try and find it, will be part of God knows where, but the Grace preset, so yeah. And of course, a bit of a hollow vintage verb just to add some ambience and a very nice, you know, bit of like width to the whole sound. And then last but not least, I stereo separated it, believe it or not, around 40%, really widening the sound out, giving it a lot of stereo. Next up for the pattern, we got ourselves the bass line itself, and of course, I'm using the same old synth bass, the source bass, which is of course found in the artillery bank, created by Easy at A and Max Shooter 49. And I've said this many times before, either of you two guys are watching this video or any of my videos, please hit me up, I would love to work with you. And of course, as we can see here, the bass pattern, very simple, following the root note of C#, and just rinse and repeat it, literally that's all it is. So without further ado, this is what the bass sounds like. And there we have it, adding a nice little bit of depth, that thickness that we need in the low end, and the bass just complemented that part so well and giving it a nice little SOUTHSIDE and PYREX aesthetic. Next up, we got ourselves a crazy freaking preset. I can't lie, I was super hyped when I found this. I mean, it might be common knowledge, but as we can see, I'm using Contact 7, and I'm using the Balkan Ethnic Orchestra Bank. I found this super dope violin called a Gypsy Romantic Violin. It's a bit of a phrase, but it isn't. It just has a nice little tang to it when you hear it, of course. But from what we can see here, I've created this nice little pattern. It's kind of like a cascading pattern. And as we can see, all I did was just start off with these notes, going down the scale. And of course, I had like a nice little note countering it. So going from down to up, and following it downwards. From what we can see here, literally almost all the notes being used are part of that thing in a scale where they're one semitone apart, giving it tension, sounding dark, you know what I'm saying? And then just copy and paste it again to create a full 8-bar. And the way I did that was by right clicking, dragging it over, highlighting it all, clicking Control and B, and that's how you do it. And the final thing I actually did, Alt R, just to randomize the velocities, giving it more of like a human touch. Without further ado, this is what the strings sound like. And there we have it. And as you can hear, you see what I mean? Like the string have this nice little bit of like a phrase at the beginning. It got like nice little bit of its own unique thing. Really like that a lot for this beat, and you know, just made it shine that bit more. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to making your beats, the key piece of advice honestly is just sound selection. Finding those hard sounds, whether it's via Reddit, via your plugins, via VSTs, via whatever it is, even if it's a live instrument. Just these little bits of ear candy really elevate the beat. And for effects, all I did was just get an EQ, calling off all the lows. Then I got an instance of Soothe 2, just to really just do its thing, you know, compress a bunch of the harsh frequencies. And then of course, last but not least, some Valhalla Vintage Verb, just to add some reverb and of course the ambience. Final component to the sample was this nice little bank I used in Contact called Choir Essentials on the Woman Performance preset. And as we can see, the pattern is actually very simple. All I do is just follow the root note, as we can see the whole way through, but I ended off with the D sharp right here. And if we look at the other melodies, such as the violin and the pad at the beginning, at the end of each 4-bar, they literally land on the D sharp, so it kind of resolves really nicely along all the different components. And when you give the full sample a listen now, you'll know exactly what I'm saying. But to break down these effects real quick, all I did was just whack an EQ calling off all the lows in this very harsh frequency. And last but not least, some Valhalla Vintage Verb just to add a bit of ambience to the whole sound. And I stereo separated this actually 100% just because it was like a nice little bit of ear candy, really complement the whole sample. So without further ado, this is what the full sample sounds like for PYREX WHIPPA in Southside. And guys, there we have it. Fire sample, but let's just get on to these fire drums. First things first, of course, the snare / clap pattern. But in this instance, I decided to use a snare just because I thought it sounded really nice with the whole melody. And from what we can see, it's a very simple snare pattern, but all I actually do, add a nice little accent note that comes in really at like the second snare, and then just copy and paste the whole thing over for this nice full 8-bar. Looking into the hi-hats, this is the pattern we've got, and to be honest, it's a bit complex, but I'll break it down for you. First things first is, this whole 8-bar is actually just a 4-bar looped over, so let's just ignore the second 4-bar and focus in really on this pattern right here. Essential thing to know, always go on the magnet tool and go on your third step rolls, right click and drag one down until you reach this paintbrush tool. Click a note, drag them as you freely will to add a roll, click shift and drag. As you can see, place the notes however you please. To now actually break it down, all I did was just start off with this nice little, you know, little roll going here. Very simple, just clicking the notes in. I did this nice little drop roll. It's a very common roll that I use. I really like it. Click it and then just, you know, drag the rest in as we can see. But then I take it back up. Add this nice little like cascading roll as we can see down here. Added this other roll here, simple nice little one, clicked in. Of course, back to the normal roll we got going on here. And I added a very similar pattern to this, except I just modified it a bit as we can see here. And then last but not least, this nice little roll going on here, which I used to click shift and just drag down to make it sound really nice. As we can see from the velocities down here, all I do is right click this, and as you can see, the velocities after it just follow, and just drag it down, giving it this nice like soothe outro for the sound. Really dope. And then all I did was just copy and paste the whole hi-hat pattern over. And of course, guys, these drums that I'm using in this beat are from my up-and-coming kit. And let me just tell you, it's got some fire sound. But to wrap this up for the hi-hats, just remember when it comes to Southside and PYREX beats, especially in the lower BPMs, always go for your third step, 6th step, you know, 1/3 beat, 1/6 beat. It really goes nicely. So without further ado, this is what the snare and the hi-hat sound like together. And there we have it. Nice little hi-hat pattern, very nice bounce I believe, and of course the snare complements it super nicely. And next up we of course got ourselves the 808 and the kick pattern. As we can see, this is the 808 pattern I've got going using my own 808, which is a modified spins one called Vic Spins. As we can see, nice little pattern, really spacious during the first half of like the whole, you know, 4-bar. Then the second half of the 4-bar kind of just reintroduce the same element, but add these nice 2 extra notes for the extra bit of bounce. And then all I do is just copy and paste it over the full 8. It's a very simple pattern for the 808. However, when you make these kind of beats for PYREX and Southside, especially in the lower BPMs, you want to kind of aim for having like a nice hi-hat roll kind of thing going there with your hats. But then for the 808, nice, spacious, heavy hitting one. But another thing I actually did with my 808, and same applies to my kick, click Control A to highlight all my notes. I use the scroller wheel click onto it, and once I click it, I drag it all the way up, as you can see, to max the velocity out, giving it a very nice punchy sound. And the reason I do this is because it aids the 808 and the kick, making it much punchier, comes through in your mix much harder, and it sounds really good for artists trying to find beats. And of course, when looking at the kick pattern itself, it's essentially just the 808 pattern, but just, you know, the kick, same note, root note C, pretty straightforward. But without further ado, guys, this is what the 808 sounds like with the kick. And there we have it, guys. Super fire little bit, but we just got a few more components. So for the last two components, first of all, we've got ourselves an open hat. But is this cool little, you know, open hat I've got in the little kit coming up, so you're gonna have to wait till I drop it. Literally just use it. Comes in every, you know, first 2 bar, nice little pattern itself. Rinse and repeat it, covering the whole thing. And it's like this nice little reversed kind of open hat, so it goes into the clap with a little cool outro. Last but not least, I made a snare roll pattern with a different snare, and as we can see, the snare is literally called Good on Rolls, so, you know, take my word for it. All I did was just go onto the magnet tool again, click the third beat step, click these notes, and manually, same pattern as we can see, copy and pasted from here to here, pretty much the same here, but remove the middle note. Add this nice little roll into this, same thing as up here and here. Again, this is actually just copy and pasted down here, really, and just, you know, nice little roll into 2 rolls. And when it comes to snare rolls, to be honest, the way I try and make them is like I envision what it sounds like in my head. So I'd be like, you know, sound it out, tap it out, whatever you need to do, get that creativity out of your system, like, you know, like tap it, make the sound, you know, like you can hear it. Once you have it out of your mental into physical sound via, like, you know, tapping it or saying it with your mouth, try and click it in. I think that's a very good way of getting these snare rolls going. That's just how I find it easy, in my opinion, you know, just thought I'd share the process that I go through. But now, without further ado, this is what the full beat sounds like. And guys, there we have it. Super fire beat, you know, of course. I think it's fire at least, and if you agree with me, though, drop a comment, let me know. But this is of course in the Southside PYREX, and before we end the video, let me just, you know, show you how the beat was just, you know, structured out. Beat breakdown. First things first, we got ourselves the intro, 1 8-bar coming into the bass, the main melody, which is the pad, introducing the strings toward the second half of the 8-bar alongside, you know, the snare roll. You know, it's like a snare roll into a chorus kind of thing. And of course, you can't forget, you know, my producer tag, because it's my beat. Then looking into the chorus, we got ourselves 2 8-bars for a total of 16. First 8-bar, as we can see, literally just kept it simple at the pads, had all the basic drums alongside it. Then for some variation, second 8-bar, introduced the strings and the snare roll and the reverse open hat. Bada bing, bada boom, and that's how you get yourself a nice chorus structure. Just have the simple parts at the beginning and add a little bit of extra sauce in the second half. Pretty simple. Now we're into the verse section. This is essentially just 3 8-bars, making it a total of 24. And as we can see, coming straight out of the chorus, focusing in on here, I now introduced this nice little vocal part that I didn't have in the chorus or, you know, the intro at all. So that variation already comes in nicely. Then keeping it simple with the drums, using the essential drums, which is my hi-hats, my snares, my 808s and my kick. Then, as we can see here, just cut off the hi-hats at the end. Bit of variation, you know, keeping it interesting for the ear, for the artist. Coming into the second part of the verse, it's kind of like, in my opinion, you know, where you drop all your hard bars. It's really like the peak of your verse. Coming in with now, instead of using the 808, you're using actually the bass line, and it really transitions nicely, in my opinion, alongside, you know, the vocals and the strings, really tying it in together. And then have a snare roll at the end of it all, just so we can transition into the final part of the verse, which is, my opinion, what I like to call the pre-hook, and it's a commonly used term. Pre-hook just meaning the 8-bar before, you know, the hook, the chorus. It's in the name. And I stripped away all the drums apart from the snare roll, the hi-hats, that's the bass line, introduce the strings again towards like the second half of the 8-bar, and then all I do is just copy and paste the same pattern over. So as we can see here, chorus is the exact same coming in, straight away into the same verse, and then back into the same chorus, wrapping the whole beat up. And that makes it a total of 1 8-bar for the intro, 2 verses which are a total of 24 bar each, and then last but not least, a chorus which is, you know, 3 choruses, and they're all 16 bars each. So guys, there you have the process from how I made the beat, how I break it down, from what sounds I use to all of that. So if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. all the recent support has been highly appreciated, and of course guys, I will see you in the next one. Peace.